Boker Tov, Bruchim Habayim. We are continuing on Hilchot Shabbat, Siman Resh Nun Gimal, and we started already Seif Hey, which is perhaps the longest and the most practical Seif of Siman Resh Nun Gimal. Well, I can't really say that because the Chazara, Shiyah, Mana is all there in all the Seifim. But here we started discussing what the Goyim can and cannot do for you on Shabbat morning as far as warming up food is concerned. And the Rama said that Omnam im lo nistanen kol kach, if the food is not cooled off, she'adayin reuim le'echol, it's still edible because warm, it's not fully cooled off. Im chimemu oto ha'enam Yehudim, if the Goyim heated it up, that's already not considered hana'ah from the goy. We discussed yesterday that there are two separate and different prohibitions when it comes to using a goy on Shabbat. One is our good old conventional amira la'akum, that you cannot tell a goy to do anything you can't do. And the second one is what we call hana'ah mi ma'aseh akum, benefiting from a job that was done by a goy for a Jew, even without the Jew telling the goy what to do. They recognize you need something, they go ahead and do it for you, right? Unsolicited. And that is also asur to use if it's considered hana'ah. So if they turn the switch on in your study, and now you could learn when you couldn't learn before, that's considered hana'ah. If it was a dim light over there, you could have learned. And now they made it geschmack, and you have now 50,000 lumen. You could use that because that's not considered hana'ah. I could have done it hardly, but I could have done it beforehand. So therefore, it's fine, right? But if it was done for me without my consent or without me telling them, still would be asur to use that melacha that the goy did. So says the Rama on that, well, the food is the same thing as the light. If it was warm before, so you could have eaten it beforehand because it was still edible, it was warm. Now he made it, piping hot, nice, steamy. Still is mutar to use it. Mutar in le'echol. Then it will be mutar to use it, says the Rama, says the Mishna Berura rather, in Seif Katan Sadichet. Va'afilu himem ayno Yehudi tafshilu basar biyahad, even if he warmed up something that has tafshil, has liquid in it, together with the meat. Va'tafshilu aya mitchila ra'ui le'echol machamatz ninuto, and the gravy was not really edible because it was cooled down, still will be mutar. Afal piken lo nesara basar. The basar does not become asur. The gravy is the gravy. The basar still is mutar, even if you have the majority as being the tafshil and the minority is the meat. You can still take the meat and eat it because the meat was edible beforehand. And says the Rama, based on this, there is a minhag Ashkenaz. לכן נוהגים שאינם יהודים מוציאים הקטרות מן התנורים שמטמינים בהם. The minhag has evolved that the goy comes Shabbat morning, takes the pots from the place that the Jews would hide them away, hatmana, cover them, and insulate them with whatever insulators was mutar to use from before Shabbat. And the goy takes it out of the insulation. Now it's still warm from yesterday, in the past 12, 16 hours that has passed, and now he puts it mamash on a heat source to make it steaming hot, nice and beautiful for Shabbat morning Suda. Says the Rama, umoshivin otan etzel tanur bet horef, they put it next to the fireplace of the winter, bahba, or alav, or even on it. And then it would be nice and hot for Suda. Mutar or Asur? Well, so you ask. right? Says the Rama, mutar. Why? Because I'm not telling them to do it, they do it for me. Well, they do it for me, I can't benefit from it. I'm not benefiting from it. I could have eaten it, it was warm. Could have eaten it. It's not gishmak, but it's good. Right? Going from good to better, it's not considered a benefit that halachically prohibits you from using a ma'aseh akum. Again, I'm not saying a word to him. He's doing it. She's doing it on her own. She knows. She studied Siman Gimal Be'iyun. She knows what to do, what not to do. Right? It's good to have a goy tamei hacham. Right? Rabbi Heinemann told me there was a goy that would work for the yeshiva, and they would use him for one year. They started using him for mechirat chametz, right? The goy. So he comes there. Rabbi Heinemann starts explaining to him. He says, there are 5 different types of grapes. He says, "I gotta sell you chametz." Chametz. Yeah, I know chametz. So you know chametz. So yes. He says, are you Jewish? He says, no, not Jewish. You sure? Says, yes. So yeah, there's five different grains. He says, yeah, I know the wheat and this, and it counts the whole 5. He says, are you sure you're not Jewish? He says, yeah, I'm not Jewish, Rabbi. And he says, yeah, the Chafetz Chaim writes in Mishna Berura, because include everything that Chafetz Chaim says in Mishna Berura, that we're selling you all those things that he writes over there that's needed to be sold. He says, yeah, Chafetz Chaim, Rabbi Kaganov, in Siman Taf Memhet, he knew, mamash. He said, how do you know this? Are you sure you're not Jewish? He says, yes, Rabbi, I'm not Jewish. He says, how do you know this then? Chafetz Chaim, Yichod Mechirat Chametz. He says, Rabbi, I work in the yeshiva, and these boys tell me all kinds of different things. They do this, they don't do this. I don't know if they're pulling my leg. Like at some point, I said, you know what, I have to study this myself. So I bought the Mishna Berura. I started learning the halachot to make sure where they're pulling my leg when they're actually serious. So the guy had gone through all the halachot of mechirat chametz. He knew he was holding, So it helps sometimes to have a goy like that. Our chef, the woman chef in yeshiva, knew hilchot borer better than the bachrim. They would come to take something out of the church and says, you can't do that. It's borer. Let me do it for you. Sometimes it helps. So if you have a mate that knows the halachot, does it on her own, if you would have been able to do it beforehand, now it became better, fine. That's not considered it's not a prohibited benefit. Fine. And that's the minhag of the Ashkenazim codified by the Rama in his time, at least. That was the minhag. And then the goya would go, they would put the food there, and then afterwards would be meva'eret hashifcha achar kach hatanur, would go and light the tanur hot, nice. The food was already sitting there. I'm not putting it on fire. It's sitting there, and I'm just warming up the house over here, right? Then the fire is there. The kedera becomes steaming hot again, and that would be asur. But you can't have a yid put the pot next to the fireplace when you know the fireplace is going to be on in a minute, right? Now, you think this is not nogea? Of course it's nogea. Imagine you have a timer, right? You have a timer on a blech, what do you call it? A hot plate, or a stovetop. One of those electric things that you could put on timer. And now you want to go put the pot on it, knowing that in 10 minutes the timer is going to go on and it's going to be nice and hot. Mutar or asur? Huh? So that would be the question. Says the Rama, a yid would not be able to do that. Bechi hai gavna. But if they're hot, then the Jew also could do it next to the tanur. מאחר שנתבאר לתנורים שלנו יש להם דין קירה וסמיכה בקירה שאינה גרופה וכתומה כדין גרופה וכתומה לעניין נתינה עליה. This already we discussed before, that putting it next to the fireplace is like having garuf vekatum. So therefore, if the food is hot, I could put it there, no problem. Fine. Now, this, of course, goes together with what the Rama says next. which is the minhag of the Ashkenazim, is to be more lenient when it comes on Chazara b'Shabbat, afidu henicha al gabe karka. Even if you put it on the ground, you could still put it back on, and the same would be to put it next to a tanur that is not garuf vekatum, is not covered, it's not cleaned. Because the food is fully cooked and it's also hot. That's the minhag. Of course, this very much overlaps with Siman Shin Yud Chet, where we discussed already the halachot of bishul achar bishul in the da'at of Maran Shulchan Aruch in Seif Dalit, and in the da'at of Rema at the end of Siman there in Seif Tetvav. Fine. Let's go back and study some of the details of this halacha. So first of all, this the Rama writes that if it's not fully cooled down, the goy now could put it next to the fireplace before the fireplace is lit. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach in his Minhat Shlomo, in his actual Tshuvot in Chelek Aleph, Siman Hey, discusses a food that is on plata, on a hot plate, right? Plata hashmalit. And what happens, or used to happen more, still in Eretz Yisrael happens pretty often, that the electricity went off. So now it's cool. Now it's the plata is cold, right? Now you know that the government, the power company, is going to work on it and fix it, and you're going to have electricity in a half hour, an hour, whatever it is, right? You're going to get electricity back, right? So what's going to be the halacha of this thing? Imagine if the goyim or yid, whatever it is, imagine if the goy, they fixed the electricity for you. Now it's like the goy turned on the oven for you, right? That's exactly what happened. You didn't turn it on. It was off because you lost electricity. Now they fixed it. They turned on your tanur. Aha! Now your food is warming up. Mutar asur. So it says, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, alav shalom, if your food was not cooled down fully, according to this Rama, should be mutar. Right? Should be mutar. Even though that you're coming to eat the food much later, in other words, let's imagine the Keser Chashmali happened at 10 o'clock a.m. or 8 o'clock a.m. 6 o'clock a.m. right? And it was fixed by 7, by 6:30. Now I'm eating it at 12 noon when I come home. Had it not been fixed from 6 until 12, it would be an igloo. It would be like a frozen, it's cold, right? But now it's piping, steaming hot. The fact that by now it would have been cold had it not been fixed, it's irrelevant. If half an hour after it went off, at 6:30 came back on and the food was still warm, then even now I could use it hours and hours later, because we only want to know when the goy did what he did you have benefit from that at that moment? The fact that I would have had benefit from it by now if the electricity didn't come on, that's irrelevant. I could still use it so long as it came back on when the food was still warm. So it says, the Mishna Berura, but by the way, this is not necessarily, this has details that are going to be in machloket. For instance, if you have a Mehalel Shabbat in Eretz Yisrael, you're talking about, this is something that we have touched on before. In Eretz Yisrael, you have people who are working. You could say majority of them probably are Mehalel Shabbat, Jews that are working. So to benefit from that, it gets into Shin Yud Chet, Seif Aleph and Bet, of not using a goy's job, but using a melacha that was done by a yid. So especially if you say that this was, let's say, a food that was liquid, and now it was warmed up, it went down from Yad Soledetbo, and now it's back to Yad Soledetbo, so then already, of course, is a whole different story over here. It's not the same halacha, right? So, even like using it to be more hot is considered hana'ah from Chilul Shabbat of a Yid. So even if it was not necessarily nitkarer, it was not less than Yad Soledetbo, just the fact that now it's steaming hot, nice, geschmack, that extra hana'ah, you're having hana'ah from a job that was done by a Jew. So it becomes a little bit more complicated when you talk about Eretz Yisrael versus in outside Eretz Yisrael, that you could assume the majority are goyim, so you don't have necessarily those problems. You'll be sticking to the core element mentioned by the Ramah over here. Fine. So says the Mishna Berura, Lachen nohagim, this minhag that the Ashkenazim have or had, that the maidservant would come Shabbat morning and take these things out of the insulators and put it on the tanur or next to the tanur before turning it on. Let me explain this to you. The kevan she'asur lomar le'enu Yehudi, it's asur to say to the goy to warm up something for you. That we all know and we all agree, right? We explain this. Therefore, לכן נוהגים שאנו יהודי נותן תבשיל שנתקרר לגמרי על תנור קודם שהוסק. The goy puts the food next to the tanur before it's lit, before it's heated. שאזלק שום איסור. Just know what's the problem. I'm putting a pot next to the fireplace. The fireplace is off, right? It's cold. I'm not doing anything now. Kevan she'en shum esh betanur. There's no fire yet. U'ma she'masik achar kach et hatanur, ikar kavanato eno ela lehamem bet hachoref. When you actually light the fireplace, what's your kavanah? Right? Northern Europe, it's minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit. It's frozen. So you want to heat up the house. You want to heat it for yourself, for the Jews. It's like that, everyone's going to benefit from it. But the food is a byproduct. It's not my kavanah. It's not my main kavanah, for sure not. And that's mutar. Because everyone is considered a hole when it comes to cold. Right? And when it comes to cold, when it comes to a hole shem bo sakana, the Rabbanan is mutar. Chazal were never gozer b'makom holi. So therefore, it will be mutar to benefit from a work of a goy, even to tell them that they should do a Rabbanan for a hole, for a sick person. Therefore, it will be mutar, as we're going to see this later in Siman Ayin Vav. ולא לחמם את התבשיל. ואף תהווה פסיק רשע. Even though that it is psik resha, for sure it's going to happen. When your food is there, before you turn on the fire, of course the food is going to be hot when you turn on the fire. That doesn't make a difference, says the Mishna Berura. לגבי התבשיל שנתחמם ממנו, מכל מקום באמירה לנו יהודי, תהווה שבות דלת במעשה, לא מחמירינן כולהי. In האמירה לעקום, that there's no ma'aseh involved, because again, the pot is already there. We're not so mahmir. V'shari af b'psik reshe. Even in a scenario of psik reshe, it would be mutar. For instance, I give you an example. Your talit bag is left in the car. Right? Shabbat morning you come and go, oh gee, I forgot my talit bag in the car. Right? What am I going to do? Right? So you could ask the goy to go get your talit back from the car. What's the problem? The problem is when he opens the door, all the lights are going to go on in the car. Oh, can you tell a guy to turn the light on for you on Shabbat? Absolutely not. He's opening the door, the lights are turning on. He's not trying to turn on the lights, he's trying to open the door to get your talit. That's mutar. The fact the lights are going to go on, it's psik reshe. Psik reshe, in this case, is mutar. Right? You forgot to turn off the light in your fridge. You don't take your food out for Shabbat. For Sorach Seudat Shabbat. Can you open the door? Well, no. Shtut. Right? Can you tell a goy to do it? Absolutely yes. Why? Because he's taking the food out. The light goes on. That's psik reshe. Right? It's a byproduct, an absolute byproduct. It's for sure going to happen, but still will be mutar, right? Hashlachot ma'asiyot, a lot of case studies over here that you can have examples that are very practical, very relevant. Veda, says the Chafetz Chaim, you shall know. The kol ze, it's be'ayblich shebetanur betchoref shelanu. And this thing that we have in our fireplaces for the winter. Nobody cooks on this in weekdays. Nobody. It's an anomaly. Nobody warms up or cooks stuff by this ayblich that they had. Therefore, the warming of the food that's happening for sure is not one of the main kavanot, one of the main intentions of this non-Jew. But if it is something that's done every morning, right, that every person puts the kettle inside there to warm up for chai and coffee, right, it's also one of the main kavanot, everyone does it, so then it's going to be a problem. Aval hatanurim shekorin English kachin, the English ovens, whatever it is, right? Shederech hakol basher bechol al gaben milmala, that it's like the things that they had back in Iran also. It was like this tall thing, if I had a fire in the bottom, so it was lit for warming up the house, but also you always had a pot or a kettle or something on top. It's just like accepted practice. If you have one of those, Isur gamur yesh bazeh, that's absolutely asur leha'amid ha'marachal lehamem al yedei ha'enu Yehudi. That to warm up, it's going to be asur even before she lights the fire. Why? Because it's normal for this to be done, and therefore it's the kavanah of the goy to do this, just like anyone else's kavanah would. V'adai kavanat ha'enu Yehudi be'esek achar kach gam bishvil bishul ha'kederot. It's for sure for cooking the kederot as well. And it says Chalila Lasot, can he brings to Rosh Kluger, right? And that's the halacha. Now says the Chafetz Chaim. Oh, we're out of time over here. We're going to stop here, B'ezras Hashem. We're going to pick it up in the days to come. Chazak u'Baruch.